So yeah, welcome. We're actually going to come here and go over cybersecurity and how it affects business, and really how it affects business. You know, I could shut that door and trap you in here with a bunch of technology speak, but nobody wants that, including myself. So, you know, like Christy had said, I've been doing this for 17 years. My company does basic network support. We also do technology advisement and protect the network from everything we're going over today. But we are heavily involved in evaluating cyber policies for not only our clients, but we also support many insurance agencies and help them communicate to their clients as well as to what these policies mean. So this is near and dear to my heart, and this is what we have been living for the last 12 months very thoroughly. So, Kevin?
Just want to give you a quick state of the state out there. One of our partners that we work with is a company called Tetra Defense, and they have a rapid response team. When ransomware attacks hit, they're kind of first on the ground and meeting with the clients to begin mitigating the damage that's already been done and handle negotiations with the ransomware folks. The state of the state of that has become, these hackers run just like a business. They are segmented. They are focused on what they're really good at. You can go out and buy a ransomware kit. And the folks that you would buy that from actually have a customer service area. So two stories that came out of Tetra Defense were a company was hit with ransomware. They had their initial conversation with the hackers, and the person on the phone said, I'm going on vacation for 2 weeks, so I'll have my associate kind of handle the negotiations from here on. The second story was just like a used car salesperson. They talked to the hacker and said, we're not going to give you that. We're going to give you this. And this was a quote from the hacker was, I'm going to have to check with my boss on that and get back to you. So that's how well formed and operating just like a business, nefarious as it is, but that's how integrated and using the business model that hackers are out there. This is their business, and they're getting good at it and getting better at it all the time.
Yep, and one of the things that many people don't know when you get over into Russia, China, and those other countries, they don't look at it like the way we do, like this is the evil people that are trying to take our data. They are rock stars over there. They are treated like they are awesome people, celebrities like we do over here. And it's a totally different culture in that dynamic than it is here.
And there are people that show up to work almost like a Google campus. They've got ping pong, they've got a cafeteria. They show up and hack for 8 hours and go home to their family. It's a career and a job.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So a couple things we're going to go over is ways you can protect yourself that are on your cyber policies, but I really want to focus not on the tech speak, but as a business, why you want to actually implement these technologies. The first thing we're going to go over is multi-factor authentication. Some of you have heard two-factor authentication. Most of you have seen this in your banks. So what multi-factor authentication is if somebody gets your username and password, you need something else to also approve it. So that could be a text message code, it could be an email, it could be a phone call, it could be an authenticator app, so Google Authenticator, Duo, there's a Microsoft one as well. So basically, to log the username and password, you either have to click something or enter a code in order to get in. So if a hacker gets that information or an employee gives them that information, you still need the physical device that has that on it. That's what protects you from your employee or yourself giving the wrong information out or them accessing it and still getting your information. So the best protection for your easiest for me or naive employees, Kevin, I'm going to borrow your story of what you said.
Go ahead.
Where they put a sticky note, username and password on a square, they turn it around so somebody can actually swipe their card, they just gave their username and password right on an actual iPad. That's a great example of employees are just trying to think, this is what's easiest for me, I need to log in, I can't remember this password, and they inadvertently gave it out. If you have multi-factor authentication, even if they have that, you still need to have the physical device to log in. It still protects you. This is why you need to have this for cyber liability policies. Now, I don't think I've seen one that actually asks you a questionnaire that doesn't require this in order to get cyber liability insurance. And for some perspective on that, everything I'm going to go over today has been on cyber liability policies, and I'll go over some math at the end as to how it affects the insurance policies. So the next thing we're going to review is VPN. I'm going to try to stay as least tech possible on this to try to keep business oriented because you can get really techy with this. But it's a virtual private network. What does that mean? Basically, anything on my computer in my office, it keeps it secure. That's what it means. So a lot of people don't realize that when you use public hotspots at Starbucks or whatever that may be, or if you're even at home with your kids, you can see stuff on your network. So if something gets compromised either at the Starbucks or at home, it can actually look at your traffic, try to analyze it, gain access, and then breach into your network. By using a VPN, it actually encrypts it, makes a solid tunnel that they can't see anything. And so we always recommend to our clients when you're at a coffee shop or on a public Wi-Fi, or even at your home accessing company data, that you are encrypting your data with a VPN.
So I have a great story around that. There's, right near the Capitol in Washington, D.C., there's a big train station right next to the train station, Union Station, right next to the train station, there's a Starbucks there. And Starbucks has a big sign that says, "This is our public Wi-Fi." And so a friend of mine was in there, and he pulls up his phone, he notices there's, it says Starbucks Wi-Fi, and it says Starbucks free Wi-Fi. There's two different networks. So he goes up to the manager, the Starbucks, said, you know, why do you have two networks here? He said, we don't, we just have it should be Starbucks Wi-Fi. He said, well, there's a Starbucks free Wi-Fi here. I suspect somebody is here emulating or capturing data, and they have a device called a pineapple. And it's just kind of that way. It's about this big, it's got a big antenna in it. He said, so let's you and I just look around here and see what we can, and also right near there was JP Morgan banks. There was a bunch of JP Morgan bankers in there on their break, on their laptops. He said, so we started looking around, all of a sudden our eyes locked on this guy with a backpack. You could just see a little antenna sticking out of it. His eyes saw our eyes, he said, and bam, down went his laptop and away. And half the people in there said, what happened to our Wi-Fi? What happened to our Wi-Fi? So he was in there harvesting data. That's how easy it can be.
It's not just in Hollywood, and you see it on all the
Yep.
CSI shows, but it does happen. So the other part is with VPNs is a lot of people, how many people are tired of dealing with multiple passwords everywhere? Everybody, right? So we always encourage us to actually have set up with a single sign-on, typically integrated with your network password or your Microsoft password. And so the reason for that, if anything happens or you're actually worried about that, if you can reset your password, it resets all at one time. You don't have to go through, remember, okay, I have this account and that account and this account and that account. It's too much, you're gonna miss one. And so they can actually get into your network, and once they get in, that's when we're gonna get into some other protections you have to worry about, but that's the most effective way to do it. And on top of that, just in case they have your username and password, also have it multi-factor authentication. So even if they get that, they still also have to do that with a VPN. And so as you're gonna start seeing these next ones all stack on each other. You have multi-factor, and you have VPN, and we're going to do another one that also stacks on that. And this is firewall protection. I cannot tell you how many times I walk into this and nobody knows the answers as to what firewall they have or what technologies they have. And the problem is, it's on every cyber liability questionnaire they've answered, and if you answer that wrong, your insurance, they're not going to pay anymore. They used to pay, they're not. So a couple things that I want you to understand. A firewall is your firewall. It's a wall between you and the outside world so hackers can't get into your network. Okay? It controls all access in, all access out. That is the probably simplest form I could explain it. It analyzes it and looks at everything to make sure that it's working correctly, so you need a firewall so that you can actually run your business. But you also want it looking for strange behavior. So a couple that they ask for specifically on policies is intrusion prevention. What intrusion prevention is, kind of what it sounds like. Somebody trying to get into your network, it looks at it, this looks a little suspicious, or it's from an IP that looks a little suspicious, this behavior is not right. It locks it out and then notifies. And so this is on almost every cyber liability I've seen for the last 5 years, and I have had one out of about 30 to 35 assessments I've done that's actually had it. It's kind of sad. Firewalls have had this for at least a decade, if not longer, overall. And most businesses are missing it. And I'm not talking just small businesses. I'm talking up to 50 user businesses, 200 user businesses are missing this key piece of technology. It's a very simple thing to have.
So that brute force attack is basically the same IP kind of coming in and I'm going to try this password, I'm going to try that password, I'm going to try this password. By the time it hits 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 times, you know there's a threat there, or the firewall then triggers that. If you've got it set up properly, triggers that and says, we're not taking anything more from that address because, you know, we think it's bad.
Yep.
And so, again, as Pete said, a lot of this has been around for a long time, but folks haven't understood what it is or how to use it.
Yep, exactly. Malware protection. Most people know what it is from their computer, but you also do this on your firewall. Remember how I said the ones coming in, right? Malware also scans going out. It does in as well, but mostly looks at going out. And same type of thing, it looks at behavior. Why is this PC that has historically done this all of a sudden gone through the roof with all of its activities, never done this before? And it will actually start looking at it and will actually block out that traffic to make sure that you're protected inside your network as well. Most firewalls don't have that as well. So your firewall should at least have those two at a minimum. And then you get into IP spoofing. What IP spoofing is, this is what you see on CSI. Or, oh, the hacker's going here and bouncing all over and doing all this and acting like these IPs. You hear all these technical jargon, nobody knows what the heck they're saying. But all it means is the hacker is actually trying to make it look like they're your business. And so what you don't want is a hacker trying to hack somewhere else, and then they think it's your business that's doing it. So you want to have protection against IP spoofing also in your firewall. A lot of people don't have that. It's not a requirement overall, but in the realm of firewalls, it is a really good thing to have. Web filtering is, honestly, I said intrusion prevention and malware are two things that are base. Web filtering is the third piece. That is both from a malicious intent and just from an employee overall productivity perspective. You need that for both. So web filtering is, I'm sure you've all gotten an email, click this link to do blah, 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 okay? When you click it, you want to make sure that it actually is looking at what website it's going to and blocking it so that it doesn't, that your employee doesn't actually go there. Additionally with that, as employers are very distracted. They can be. I'm not saying all of them aren't, but they can be. And so sometimes I've had clients that are like, I don't want my employees on Facebook except during the lunch hour, or not even during the lunch hour sometimes, and my marketing person, that's it. You should have the capability to be able to streamline that to say, hey, you know what, this is our company policy, you can do it during lunch, but outside of that, you really don't need that. If you need access to it, you just gotta let us know. So from a security standpoint, you need to protect against that click of the link, but also from a productivity standpoint as a business, you also want that on the other side to make sure they're not surfing Facebook, which also has its own set of security things you have to worry about inside of that. And IP restrictions. So what those are basically saying, hey, my business data is here, and here's my office. What do you want to access your business data? Your office, correct? Even if you have people at home. So what you do is, this is stacking on VPN, the VPN makes a connection to your office, which connects over to here. So what happens is when you say only my office can get my data, then what happens is China and Russia and all these other countries can't access it. It's only from your office. So that's where your firewall needs to have the capability to be programmed to make sure it's restricted per addresses. The other thing is, and this is very recent in the news, countries. The first thing we did in February, guess what countries we blocked? For all of our clients. Russia, China. Honestly, we're anybody over there. Anything on the old Eastern Bloc, we blocked them unless there was a business reason to actually let them in. And the traffic went through the roof. And just from a business standpoint, think about it from the fact that Russia had no money. Guess how they were getting their money? Hacking. There's state-sponsored agencies that do it. So the first thing you need to be able to do is have a layer 7 filtering blocking anything coming from Russia. Yes, they can do IP spoofing and stuff like that, but don't be low-hanging fruit. Make it hard on. They'll move on to the next person. And so, on top of that, with VPN access, make sure you have most firewalls handle your VPN as well. Not all, but most of them do. And they, once again, also have that multi-factor integration with it.
Can I ask you, sorry to interrupt, ask you a question about the IP filtering specifically for website traffic, website development. Is simple, on the web server level, simply blocking traffic from those countries sufficient? Or is there additional protection that's needed?
I would do it in the firewall end. That's
okay, even if...
Because what's going to happen is they're going to pound that, Then we're being techie, sorry guys.
No.
They're going to pound that web server, and they can do what's called like a DDoS attack. Just keep pounding it, and they can't handle it. The firewall is more engineered to handle that better, and just won't let it come in.
Okay.
So that's typically what I've seen. There's multiple ways to go that route, but that's typically how we used to do it with Exchange and a bunch of other stuff too. Now we don't do Exchange as much anymore. But yeah, but that's a good question, though. Good translation of what I was saying. Data protection. So this is basically anything that could be stored on your laptop. This is all risk. I want to be clear, this is just a risk. If something can be on your laptop, it should be protected. Not, oh, I never save it. Well, then that one thing happens, you have that presentation you got to do, that you got to make sure it works when you get there. You copy this sensitive document over that has your entire client list or information, and it's stored locally. You need to make sure that that is protected. So on the laptop side, we actually require our clients to send a waiver that all laptops have to be encrypted. And the reason being is because the laptops, or what Kevin was talking about, you have a laptop sitting right on your seat. Oh, break the window, grab the laptop, walk off. How many of you want to have to go through and think of what you saved on that laptop in that situation, and if you have to notify your clients that you may have lost their data? Number is 0. Nobody wants to do that. It's encrypted, you're good. From that standpoint, from a liability, and honestly from a practicality standpoint, you're good, you're covered. So that's why we always recommend people do that, and basically require that with a waiver, and that is what keeps that protected. Desktops and servers are optional on most cyber liability policies, and basically what that protects against is employees taking hardware home, which happened during COVID. A lot of people picked up their desktop, because if you had a laptop and brought it home, now it's not at the office, it's outside your business control. That should be protected for the same reason we just said. Servers, the server is another thing they're asking for. That actually encrypts the servers there, and that's really for the recycling purpose. So if you recycle your server, you don't have to worry about going through an official certification process. I mean, you still should, but even if you don't, you're protected. So that's why they're starting to require that in cyber liability policies. We've seen that over half of them over the last year. It doesn't make it so you can't get insurance, it just makes you pay more. So it's all dollars and cents to these cyber companies, and like I said, I'll do that math equation at the end. The email. So this is something that works really well when used correctly. It's been around for a very long time. I've been in insurance ever since HIPAA was passed. We've had to have some kind of a process for this. But now it's gotten to the point where how easy it is to forward an email to somebody else. Pretty darn easy, right? That's a good thing and a bad thing, right? You send information, oh yeah, this is fine. I don't know if there's anything sensitive here. I'm going to forward it over to this other person. Now we have to go through a trail, go through a whole e-discovery process to figure out how this information got released on the dark web or whatever it may be. When you have actual secure email, Microsoft has it built into their product with an EE3 or licensing or above, where if I say it's going to Kevin, it's going to Christy, Kevin and Christy cannot take anything from that data and forward it. It's called digital rights, and it actually contains the email in one thing. And so anything with personal health information required by HIPAA, anything with financial information required by SOX. Honestly, there's stuff with PCI Compliance and everything like that that you want to have contained to make sure it doesn't go. And honestly, if I take over a new client, password list, that needs to be secure. So we either set it up through that or through a secure online shared portal. Same thing. That is the only way you can guarantee that email is not taken and forwarded elsewhere. And like I said, it's actually been required for HIPAA since 2007. Yeah, 2007, then they had version 2 about a decade ago. That restricted it a little bit further. So if you ever deal with personal health information or anything financial, you should already be doing this, and if you're not, that is the first conversation you need to have as to how you can start doing that. And cyber liability policies are starting to require that to sign a contract with them. So if that makes sense, sorry, let me rephrase that. The cyber liability policies and some contracts are starting to ask for this. So you may have a client that says, I want to do business with you. But you have to have these checkboxes, and if you don't have these checkboxes, you're not even in the running. So you may miss out on new business. That's the business impact. Yeah, this is all techie stuff I've been throwing at you. We want you guys to sign business and be able to grow, and you don't want to lose out on it because you're not fulfilling these requirements. Okay, now we're going to get into employees. Security awareness. So security awareness training, I have seen time and time again, like, yeah, I do an email phishing campaign. That's good. It's a good start. You also have social engineering. These are the phone calls that pop up. These are the pop-ups on websites that say, you're infected, click here, and then they make you pay. How many of you have seen the Microsoft scam where they'll say, I'm Microsoft, and if you pay me this $500, I can make sure you're all cleaned up because you're infected. And they call, I've had family members that have done this, most people have, and they pay the money and then they find out, oh, they cleaned everything off it. It's like, no, they didn't. They just installed a bunch of stuff on there and they're going to make you pay another $500 in about 30 days. And that's how they get their revenue. And so that not only affects home users, but businesses. And so you have to have an all-encompassing solution that's keeping track with the current trends. What I said now, there will be a fourth one and a fifth one on here next year.
There is, and they're getting better and better. I recently got a phishing attempt, and it was, you've got a UPS package coming. Everything on that email was legit. UPS's website, their customer service number. The only thing that wasn't was the tracking number of the package. And I knew that I didn't have a package coming in, so, but I hovered over it, and that would have taken me into the malicious piece of it. So 99% of it was legit. The 1% that they wanted you to click on was not.
Yep. Exactly. And so, and this is the part where I do the security assessments, like I said, for prospects, and we do it for our clients too. For prospects, I run into, yeah, we did that. I'm like, when did you do that? Oh, it was like 2019. I'm like,
Really?
okay, first of all, how's your turnover been since 2019? You know, and second of all, like you just said, they're getting better. It's changing. You need something that is continuous education for your employees so they know what techniques they're using. And then when they fail, okay, sorry, now you gotta take this test. And you have to go through and be retrained on this so you know how to look out for it. Product we recommend is KnowBe4. It's fantastic at it, at the continual education portion. It does those four pieces in there that I already touched on. It's very easy to set up. The other ones are good. That's the more all-encompassing one. That is developed by a hacker. So a very well-known hacker, Kevin Kaufmann. So, and these are also showing up on cyber-liability policies. It's once again a discount item. You'll get cyber-liability, but you're going to pay an increase rate. So email security. So email security, I'm not going to get too techie on this. I'm trying to keep it high level. Basically, most people need to have advanced threat protection, and I honestly, once again, maybe under 5% of the companies that I walk into that are under 50 users have this, that are our clients. What that does is it's kind of like turning it up to 11 with your security email. Everybody has a spam filter in some way, shape, or form, right? And you get that spam filter, half of us don't even look at it, whatever. But you also need somebody going through and scanning for any viruses and attachments inside the email, the links to the email, for what everyone was talking about. That tracking number, it should catch that and block it from happening. That's where the advanced threat protection is. And even look at phishing techniques. They are starting to require that in cyber liability as well too. Or if you don't have that, they may not write you. Because how is Kevin going to keep up with it? What if Kevin got 100 packages a week?
Right.
I mean, the fact that you said that, like, I wouldn't know that. Because I think, we love Amazon, so we have stuff coming in all the time. So, so we got to make sure that you have that advanced threat protection. Setting up your IPs properly. Basically, those are 3 techniques that are used. All that is conceptually is, I approve this place to send my email. That's it, conceptually. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but it's saying this IP, it might be Office 365, it might be GoDaddy, whatever it may be, they are me. If anything comes from somewhere else, it's not me. And so that's how this advanced threat protection and spam filtering identifies it and doesn't allow it through your users. So you have to make sure that's set up. And most cyber liability policies are asking for both of these and requiring both of them, at least having SPF set up. So, EDR. This is a fun thing that we've been dealing with for a year. Well, longer than a year, but specifically last year, because now they're showing up on every cyber liability policy. But there are a lot of things that people think EDRs are, and a lot of things that they actually aren't. The base level EDRs are not responsive. What they do is they log and they grab everything, and they'll manually notify saying, hey, we thought this was kind of weird. That's it. Okay, so with that, a lot of people think this is all-encompassing, completely protects you, and does everything for you. Like an antivirus is what they think it is. It's not. What this does is more of a forensic detail of the logging, what's going on. So if a vulnerability happens, they can go back and track exactly what happened. While they can do it forensically, it makes it a lot easier, a lot more efficient, so they can find it faster, which is key. If you get hacked, you want them to take a week to figure out what happened, or a few hours. A few hours. You want to lock everything out that's exposed. And that's what they do. They don't typically prevent, but what they will do is, there are ones that automatically respond. The ones we've tested, they're a little aggressive, and so then you can't even run your business in a lot of cases, so it's really hard to get that dialed in. We are still in the process of trying to finally have one identified that gives us the most control. That was the first step, so we can get it refined to be able to do that so that our clients can actually go on with their business, but still semi-reactive if something's happening from behavior.
We look at this very much like a fire alarm. You want the alarm to go off when there's truly a fire, and it, prompts you to action.
Great analogy.
But you don't want it going off every half an hour.
And shoot sprinklers all over
And shoot
everything.
sprinklers all over
There's not anything you want to- Exactly. I'm gonna borrow that one. That's a great analogy. So, like I said, it's mostly used to shore up what happens after an incident, and then they're going to be required for cyber liability policies, specifically for selfish reasons. If something happens, the insurance company wants to know how, and so they can start requiring that on their next insurance policy, so that they are more covered. It really is, and honestly, that's fair to them to do that, but that's why they're requiring it. So, backup and disaster recovery. This is something that is horribly overlooked, and a lot of people, a lot of businesses are like, I trust my IT vendor. Should you? You shouldn't, unless you go through a very thorough process explaining what it is, and it's audited, and we're going through at least once a year explaining everything. So, it is the first and most critical defense against hackers. I would say not first, but it's the most critical defense, because if you can recover from a hack, you usually, as in usually, don't have to pay the ransom. We can just restore everything back, wipe everything like it never happened. I say that, they're getting better at finding other techniques to make you pay, but that will usually, in a lot of cases, at least reduce the amount you have to pay, which is key. So the first thing I tell businesses, you have the right to know exactly how you're set up. If they say, I got you covered, that's not good enough. You need to know how often you're backing up. Is it hourly? Is it every couple hours, 4 hours, 8 hours, daily, whatever it may be? Ask them, well, how is this set up? It's okay to ask them to see the screen as to how it's actually getting set up. The next piece, and this is missed at almost every client I go to, prospect we go to, server crash protection. And so, if your server crashes, if you have a server, it crashes, how long does it take to get you back up and running? A lot of people are like, well, your backup sent it off-site. We'll get you back up and running in, probably like 6 or 7 days. Is that okay? Can your business survive that? How many customers are going to call you in 6 or 7 days that you're saying, sorry, I can't help you, and how fast do you think they're going to start jumping to one of your competitors? So you need to ask that question, and if they don't know, that's a problem. And you need to find out if they have a solution, or find a solution that will resolve that for you. The final piece is, the third piece of this is building destruction or disabled protection. What that means is, does your building burn down? Well, from that perspective, most people are building is burned down. Well, maybe the power grid got knocked down your block and they don't know what the problem is. It might be 2 or 3 days before they get back up and running. What are you going to do? Well, we'll use our disaster recovery. Okay, that sounds good. How long until you're up and running? It'll be 6 or 7 days. That's also, by the way, not uncommon. That's not me just throwing a number out there. That is very typical disaster recovery solutions because they're not built for it. And so, ask that question and find out how much that is. Not only that, they say, oh, you'll be back up and running in 2 hours. We're awesome at this. This is great. Sounds good. Can we test that? And you might get a blank look in your face because a lot of them don't want to test it. I can't tell you how many times I've run into this, and Kevin, I'm sure you have, where they say, it's all good. We're back up and running in 2 hours. And then an incident happens and it doesn't work. You need to test it once a year. It is showing up on cyber liability policies, but most importantly, for your own peace. When you're running a business and owning a business and dealing with all this, we got enough stresses. We don't need to throw that on there, and that should be something that you're doing. Okay? The other final piece, and this is really, really, really important. I cannot stress this enough. This is how the last 3 hacks that I have found when prospects have happened is this specific way. Is all those 3 pieces, backups, server crash protection, and the offsite, basically protecting your building. Those 3 pieces, you need 3 separate sets of credentials. Most vendors have 1 because they're lazy. I'm being honest, they're lazy. We've been doing this for 4 years. The Department, the Homeland Security said, don't do it this way anymore. You've got to isolate this. They've been telling us that for 4 years, and most of them are like, I don't really want to do that because that's a lot of work. We've been doing it for 4 years, and we're not that big of a company. It's about caring about the data and knowing quite frankly, this is the number one thing I'm gonna get sued over, so that's why you have to.
And it's been kind of a mind switch, and the insurance industry has been fabulous in helping promote and bring this in. Originally, you know, hacks and all that, you would talk to CEOs, they'd say, yeah, this is an IT problem. So if there's an issue, I go to my IT person and say, you know, fix it. And they really are beginning to look at this as a physical threat, similar to a fire, a flood. And so continuity planning and bringing all of the company into it and planning for that continuity. And as Pete was saying, you know, 6 or 7 days is not going to cut it to get us back up and running. And that's at a minimum. I've got a friend who works at a company, they make the fiber fill that's used in mattresses. One of those companies, huge, but you never hear about them. They're making components. They make the fiber fill that's used in mattresses and furniture and like that kind of thing. Got hacked. All of their employees had an 800 number they have to call each day to find out whether they were up and running. And they ended up being out about 24 days, 24 work days, so almost a month. But every morning you wake up, call this 800 number and say, nope, we're not up, we're not ready yet today. So that's what can happen out there.
Yep. So CUI, and in the interest of time, we're getting closer, so we have Q&A. So CUI, basically what that is control of classified information. If Obama passed this law, if I remember correctly, you will see this in CMMC certifications, NIST. Those are two that I run to all the time. Basically what it's saying is if you're touching government data, you gotta treat it properly. That's all it means, but just conceptually. And so they have a very specific list of things that you have to do, and this is changing like all the time. And so there's level 1, 2, and 3. Level 1 is like, that's basic level interaction with the government. Most of the stuff I talked about already covers, I would say, the vast majority of it. There's probably another 15, 20% in there that you gotta do. That's digestible.
We use the term cyber hygiene, and you've seen a lot of that in today's presentation. Cyber hygiene is just doing the simple things that make good business sense. We think there's an analogy between home security and kind of data security. You don't want to be the soft target. There's people out there rattling your doors, checking to make sure they're locked every day. Don't be the, don't be the person with your windows down and a purse with a 20s hanging out of it, sitting just inside the window, and all the lights off so it's easy to walk up to the house. Have the lights on. Do the simple things that make you less attractive as a target. The hackers out there looking for the softest target. They want the easiest money. They want to, they're not going to, state-sponsored terrorism is picking a target and saying we're just going to beat on it. And home security is the same way. If somebody really wants to get into your house, they'll figure out a way. But 99% of the, 99+% of the time, they're looking for the easy target. So harden yourselves and do the simple things. The MultiFactor Authentication, the password changes. Your computers have an automatic sleep mode that automatically goes down. What is your policy on bringing in jump drives or hard drives? Simple things like that. One of my favorite stories. CEO is up at his cabin and he's trying to quit smoking. He's got e-cigs and he needs to charge his e-cig holder, and it's got a mini USB and he plugs it into his laptop. There's malware on the e-cig that gets into his laptop, infects their network, and so simple things that you wouldn't, just crazy things you wouldn't think of. So always think about those physical. Most of the hacks happen because of human engineering. It's somebody clicking on the link they shouldn't. It's somebody leaving a door open they shouldn't have. It's just with the firewall, having the capability, never turning it on. It's those simple things that'll get you most of the way there.
Yeah, the analogy I always tell people is don't be the low-hanging fruit, like you just said. So don't be in the bottom third of the tree. Get the top 2/3. We like our clients to be the top third, but don't be in the bottom that bottom third of that tree. Everybody's picking that fruit, and that's what they're going after because they're naturally lazy. Well, I guess it's a job. They're naturally lazy. They're going to move on to the next one. Let it move on to the next one that's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is unfortunate. It feels like it's, that's the business we're living now, though. So, other than that, that's actually most of the stuff. I know that there was some tech stuff in there. Those are also specifically related to cyber liability policies that we've seen, and those are all specifically changed in the last, that's just 12 months. I don't know what this is going to look like in another 12 months. I'm being honest with you. Now, I say that, those are most things that have been kind of hanging out there that they haven't really been listening to, and now they're saying, now you're doing all of it. So much so, we just had brought on as a client somebody who was paying about $2,000 a month. This is the math I was thinking about. $2,000 a month in their premium, and they got hacked. They went through. It was literally just that wasn't human interaction. It was a vulnerability in the firewall that they had because they didn't have good firewall. Didn't have all the stuff we were talking about, and so from that perspective, they had to pay out a very expensive, almost $500,000 ransom. You can do the math on a $2,000 premium per month. $500,000. Does that make any sense for the insurance companies to insure that? No, it doesn't. It takes 16 years, or whatever, for that to pay for itself, or 20 years. They won't do that anymore. But that doesn't mean that you're, from that perspective, going through and doing all this to get everything taken care of, get everything shored up, and do all that, because they be able to bring us on and be able to help them with that, and get insurance payments. Very, very hard. But at the same time, at that point, you talk about not wanting to approve a bunch of different things all at once, getting those little line items, I gotta buy this, I gotta buy that. You don't have a choice at that point. Once you're hacked, you're buying anything they tell you to do. So take that budget, it's gonna go up then, after you're hacked, or it can go up now, and you can actually stay in business. That's really the choices that you have. So. Any questions?
We work a lot with clients that are diving into Industry 4.0, IIoT, and basically expanding their internet exposure out to manufacturing floor devices. What would be good recommendations for them as they start expanding and saying, okay, how do we protect an entire connected manufacturing floor?
What I've seen out there is typically some level of strong firewall and/or air gap.
I don't know what the term is.
Okay, I'm sorry. By air gap, what I mean is if you've got a connected floor,
Yeah,
you've got a barrier around that floor that there's nothing going out,
gotcha.
so that there's no way, if there's no way out, there's no way in.
Yep.
So, great example, I had a tour of Shine down in Janesville.
Yep.
They're doing the radio isotope.
Yep.
And their reactor room is going to be completely physically off of the net. And there isn't, and so you can control the factory floor from within the factory floor, but tell me a good business reason that you would need to control that factory floor from a remote location. So you build it in such a way that everything is internally self-contained, and what they mean is air gap. If you think about electricity, you cut the circuit and put space in there, there's nothing that can make the jump.
Okay.
Oh yeah, air gapping is kind of that's actually because it's not on here, mostly because it usually winds up being very cost prohibitive for a lot of, that's our next step in our protection. Like I said, we like to say 3 or 4 years ahead, because it's going to get required here at some point here, and from a backup standpoint. But yeah, anything to do with we talk about PCI compliance. Anytime you're taking your credit cards or anything like that, every business usually has something like that. Get all that stuff on its own network away from everything else. Because if it's only processing credit cards and it's all it's doing, that's the right way to set it up so that you can run your business and they're completely isolated, so your credit card information and your business information, so if your business gets infected for some reason, at least your credit card information is safe. And PCI companies love that. They're like, no, please, that's what we want you to do.
Yep. Big vulnerability, school districts. Why? Because your credit report and social security number is way more valuable than mine. I've got all of this history out there, and if I do some behaviors, it's going to look different than my normal behaviors, and that's going to trigger my credit card companies. But as an 18-year-old with a fresh set, and I have your social security number, I go out and get a credit card, I can run up a lot of stuff before they figure out a pattern. So, that's a vulnerability within school districts, and we've seen a number of them. Janesville's been hit, and there's been a number of them.
How do you feel about remote services, remote drives such as OneDrive or Dropbox or Google Drive? Are those inherently safer than keeping it on your own, or?
Depends on their setup.
Yeah.
So like OneDrive we're fine with, as long as you have multi-factor in 365 with it. And so all of our clients that they use it that way, we tell people to use multi-factor. So even if somebody gets using a password, you need your phone in order to access the data. And so everything has its risks, so there's a convenience factor with it. You know, that yes, it's available, you can share it, you can do all that stuff as well too, but make sure you set it up properly and it's all secured on the other side. You talk about USB drives.
Yep.
We block it out now. We're going through all that, you just can't do it. You have all these other capabilities with OneDrive and all this other stuff.
You don't need it.
You don't anymore. And honestly, it's nice because then you can control, hey, I don't think they have it anymore, you shut it off. And yes, they may have downloaded at that point, but at least it's not out there forever. And so we recommend the same thing. So I would definitely say don't go with the weird off-path ones, like go with a major player, enable all the securities that they have, that's the best solution overall.
Disposal of your old equipment, old hard drives, physically destroy it. You know, literally, take a hammer, take a drill, take a whatever.
We had a client that he loves having target practice with his gun. And we were like, be careful what's behind him. If you really want to, you could actually shoot the heart of it and get holes right through it and everything. He was out on his farm. And I'm like, yeah, that was the most fun I've ever had doing a computer project in my life. I'm like, well, way to go. Nothing survived that. So yeah, it's and that's the other thing is making sure you're going to get recycled for a reputable vendor. Don't just hand it off to Joe Schmo. Our clients, what we always do is we pull the hard drives out, and we will have the other hardware we'll recycle, and they actually take it to a certified vendor to get it recycled because you don't want to take the chance.
If you pull the hard drive out of the unit, is there anything that isn't within the unit other than the hard drive that is at risk? Is there anything worried about?
I mean, at that point, if you want to get super technically, statistically speaking, there could be, but that's the number one thing you want is that hardware.
Yeah.
That's what has the vast majority of anything that would be an issue.
Your RAM will have something when you power down. And
Yeah,
stuff.
Yeah, so the RAM's the only other
just-
thing
The
that-
RAM's the only thing. Right?
Yeah,
There's
correct. Printers, large MFPs are the exception. They store weird stuff in
Yeah,
different
there you
spots.
go.
There was a story, this is old, so probably almost a decade old, where the Middle East was buying a bunch of our printers and bringing it over there, and they were pulling scanned data off of them to be able to get information.
Sure.
So that's why, like, you look at with a printer, I'm like, go through a reputable print vendor that knows how to do it, they certify that they did it. Because then if something happens, it's on them, it's not on you, because you went through a certified vendor.
Is this helpful?
Yeah, very much. I think just people on the lack of attendance, I think, is an example of how people are like, still just don't understand.
So as
It's
we,
just like, why is this not important? You know what I mean?
Pete is out on the, and is seeing beginnings of adoption.
Yes.
We've been out, we've been out and kind of screaming like a voice of the wilderness, but it is a problem that, there needs to be an impetus. This is like, preventative health care. People never do it till they need it and, that kind of piece. There's starting to be that piece. The insurance industry started out similar to long-term care. Everybody's in the same risk pool. We're gonna write policies for everybody. They're now getting, segmented, risk pool and that assessment part on the front end, saying, we're not just gonna write the policy because you happen to be in existence. You've got to show us that you're not a huge risk. We think the next step in that will be financial institutions. When you start losing money on your commercial loans because your companies go out of business, we think they're gonna start doing that. We think CMMC, quite frankly, it's starting with the defense industrial base. Our hypothesis is that's gonna migrate into industry similar to quality standards. ISO, it'll be a shorthand for, say, there will be some kind of a shorthand or certification that says, we're at a minimum standard. HIPAA's got it, PCI has got it to a certain extent, but we think that particularly, and it'll be OEMs, we think that'll drive it into their supply chains. Everybody hear about the Fazio Mechanical hack? No, nobody has? Okay, Fazio Mechanical is a HVAC contractor in Scranton, Pennsylvania. They were monitoring a Target store and plugged in to their HVAC, downloaded a virus in. There wasn't sufficient firewalls, this is going back a few years, but it almost took down Target. Target ended up closing all of their stores in Canada as a result. It's lost billions of dollars just out of this one little vendor in this one little area. So, that's what's happening out there. Obviously and it's going to, the top end folks are very cognizant of it. They're very worried about it. but they're as strong as their weakest link, and they're dealing with a number of supply chains. Eventually, that will, we think, be that impetus as well.
So here's the question I always have.
Yeah.
How do we get these people to actually come and work for the people that I know need hire, that are hiring right now? This is the part that I was thinking about. Why can't we get them? This seems like an undertapped, underutilized,
Why don't we have the hackers working in the good side?
yeah.
Easier
Working
money,
for legitimate businesses. I mean,
Yeah.
we obviously have a labor shortage. I would just love to
Yep.
figure out a way. How do we get to
For an
them?
investment of
Don't work for us.
$10,000, if you were so bent, for an investment of somewhere around $10,000, I could set you up with an income that would be somewhere in the $150,000 to $250,000 range, and you would work part-time out of your home. Until and unless you got caught.
It's just, it makes me kind of sick to my stomach, but,
Yep.
It's the new organized crime.
yeah, yeah.
And it's,
It's
And
just so
it's-
unfortunate.
right, and they're now beginning to start, prosecuting and taking it seriously, but
That's
we had
good.
a fabulous story out of a woman in Kansas was hacked and tracked it back, and it turned out to be and the Kansas Police Department, Kansas City, wouldn't write a police report on it. And so she went up to the FBI, and the FBI said, yeah, we'd love to prosecute. And she had tracked it back to a 16-year-old that was in Alaska. And went to the FBI and said, yeah, if you give us a police report, we can take action on it. Went back, police still wouldn't write a report on it. She eventually badgered him into it, and ended up talking to the kid's mother. He's like, please, come get him. He's, we know he's doing this stuff.
Wow.
And eventually, it happened. But there's a lot of people, it's easy money. They're not prosecuting it. It's tough to prosecute. And those systems are behind the hackers. And eventually, it'll catch up.